Chapter 6. Allan. Allan. Allan took Gregory and Julian home first, and then he started walking Caron home. Caron was not used to having a long interaction with Allan, and he looked at Allan with a different light now that he knew that they had suffered similar hardships, and it made sense to Caron that Allan would act so hostile. Caron figured that Allan probably had a lot of repressed rage. Allan, reading his thoughts, started as thus: I don't need your pity, Caron, and didn't you leave your girlfriend over something like that, so give it a rest already. I will give it a rest if you start respecting my private thoughts, said Caron. If it concerns me, then it's not private, said Allan. You always have an answer for everything, don't you, Allan, said Caron, sighing. Certainly, I was poised to be the next Arch Magus till the tower went kaput, said Allan. Did you see the dragon that attacked the tower? Asked Caron. Yes, all four of us barely escaped with our lives, said Allan. Caron originally wanted to be a tower mage, and he was saving money, and he was studying for the entrance exam, and one day a dragon torched the tower to the ground, and the incident had sparked much debate in the entire continent, and it had been the first sighting of a true dragon in centuries. And dragons tended to remain aloof with regards to the world events, and even when they roam among lesser beings, they always did so in disguise. Efforts had been made to track down the beast, but after the incident, the creature had disappeared. For the rest of the nightly walk, Allan and Caron ranted about dragons, and when they reached the entrance of the garden, Allan said to Caron, Did you say a bit about my proposition? I need more time to think about it, said Caron. It is a limited time offer, and who knows how I might feel about you tomorrow, said Allan, letting himself inside the garden. Caron was a bit hesitant, and he wanted Grimory, but Grimory did not exist, and it had been Gregory putting on an act. And what if Grimory was real, and he had rejected him? Should he have spent his entire life pining after a man who did not love him? Allan stopped and he folded his arms, and a shouting smile appeared on his face. Caron sighed and he stopped thinking, and it was pointless to try to have a proper conversation with oneself with Allan eavesdropping with his telepathy. The house was quiet, and Allan made his way towards the kitchen and he started looking about. And Caron asked, And what are you looking for? Doesn't your house have any liquor? Asked Allan. We are mostly social drinkers, and I'm going to see if my brother has anything stashed away in his room, said Caron. Allan walked into Caron's bedroom and he sat down on the bed and he waited for Caron. And while he waited, he had a mischievous grin on his face, and he could not help but chuckle from time to time. Caron entered his brother's room and he found Bron busy with his wife Alisa. And Bron left Alisa and he wrapped himself in a bathrobe. And Caron embarrassed said, I'm sorry for interrupting, but where do you keep the good liquor? Are you having company tonight, Caron? Asked Bron, smiling proudly. Alisa took out of the bed, but she did not bother to get dressed, and she went to a nearby cabinet and she brought out a rosette, and then she reached further back and she brought out a whiskey bottle. Smiling, she said, and we have something a bit stronger if your day so desires it. Who is it? Asked Bron with curiosity, and he seemed inclined to check Caron's bedroom. Allan, said Caron flatly. Allan, my dear brother, you can do better, said Bron, laughing. Doesn't he hate you? And I swear that whenever you turn your head, he looks like he's plotting to murder you, said Alisa. But no matter, if Allan is what you desire, you have my full support. It was nice knowing you, Caron, said Bron, kissing his brother on the forehead. Caron was not amused by Bron and Alisa's raving, and he took the bottles, and then he went to see what Allan was up to, and he found Allan laughing sinisterly, and he stopped when he heard Caron opening the door. And he entered meekly, and he showed Allan what he had to offer, and Allan chose the whiskey, and he opened the bottle, and he took a large gulp, and the playful look on his face returned. On the other room, Caron's interruption had ruined date night, and Bron and Alisa had their heads glued against the walls in order to listen better. Allan said, Quite the audience we got there. They're listening in, aren't they? Said Caron, and then he proceeded to strike the wall before yelling, Knock it off, Bron, go fuck your wife or something. I was doing that till you interrupted me, little brother, snapped Bron. Alyssa's shrill laughter was heard from the other room, and Allan started knocking on the walls till he made his way towards the bathroom, and he gestured Caron to come within, and he closed the door, and then he whispered, "We can have a bit more privacy here." Caron hesitated once again. Yes, there was probably more privacy, but then nobody would hear him scream if Allan got violent with him. "I am glad to see you have such high opinions of me," retorted Allan, and he added, "So, Mr. Not Quite a Pure Maiden, do you want me to start, or do I wait for you?" "I don't know what to expect from you, so I think I will try to follow along," said Caron, blushing. "You should bathe first. You still smell of seawater and salt. It is disgusting," said Allan. "You don't smell like roses yourself, Allan," retorted Caron, annoyed. "Fair enough. You take your bath and I will shower, and I am going to borrow one of your brother's clothing," said Allan. Allan manifested inside the ogre's bedroom, and he gingerly opened the closet, and he picked out a random set of pants and a shirt. And Bron, annoyed, said, "You take my drink, my clothing, my brother, and why don't you take my wife while you're at it, Allan?" Chuckling, Allan said before they parted, Don't tempt me, Bron." "I think they're in the bathroom," said Alyssa. "And we need to find a way to thin out that wall," said Bron, worried. "It'll be fine, maybe. Your brother can handle a lot of abuse," said Alyssa. "That is what I'm afraid of," said Bron, concerned. Back in the bathroom, Caron was busy with his bath, and he normally liked to linger there, but he had Allan to entertain, who was not known for his patience. And Allan left Bron's clothing on top of the chair, and then he rummaged to the closet to get a bed comforter and some pillows, and he made a little love nest near the bay window, which he opened to let the night breeze in, and then he proceeded to shower quickly. And Caron said to Allan, "Here's the soap." Allan grinned, and then he proceeded to finish his shower, and Caron observed Allan with mild amusement and curiosity, and then he turned to look at the lithograph of Grimory in the bathroom, and he mused a little as well. Allan looked at the lithograph, and then he frowned before turning his back to it. Allan felt as if Grimory was silently judging him. And when Allan felt clean enough, he went to see about Caron, and he stood over him, looking down on him. And Caron shuddered a little under the intense gaze of Allan's eyes. And Allan hunched near Caron's bastard to be on the same eye level. And chuckling, he said, "I think you missed a spot." "It is very hard to miss a spot when you're submerged in water," said Caron. "I find bathtubs to be quite messy," said Allan, removing the drainage plug. And he added, "They are ideal for napping, but you can never quite clean yourself. See, you still smell of seawater." Allan drew nearer, and then he whispered softly while he scented Caron, "I still smell the sea on your hair, in your mouth, down your neck. I bet that also smells like seawater too." And Caron gasped at Allan's unexpected caresses, and Allan started with playful teasing, pulling, and even slight pinches. And he was gauging and measuring Caron's responses to his touches, and then all of a sudden they stopped. Allan left Caron's side, and he sat with his back against the bay window, and the floor felt rather cold even with the bed covers. And after his first skirmish, Allan waited to see how Caron would react. Caron was in a daze, and he waited in the tub, not knowing what followed. And Alyssa always maintained a steady momentum, and Allan's sudden pause was something that Caron was not familiar with. And he turned to look at Allan, who was patiently waiting for him to get up. And Caron pushed himself out of the tea bath, and he rinsed himself in the shower in order to regain some sort of composure. And Allan beckoned Caron to sit beside him, and Caron meekly obeyed, and he sat down, and he waited and waited. And Allan too was waiting for something to happen, and his impatience started to show by the tapping of his left foot. "You are far too passive, Caron, and if I wanted to engage someone who did not do anything, I would have slept with a corpse," said Allan, laughing. And Caron was not amused by the insult, and he drew near Allan, and he wrapped his arms around him to kiss him. And chuckling out, Allan said, "So you're not completely hopeless." Allan's rhythm was as unstable as his personality, and at times he was gentle and soothing, and at other times it seemed to Caron that Allan was trying to crush it with all his physical strength. And in these early stages, Caron could not tell the difference between being with a man or a woman. And Allan slowly made his way lower and lower with his kisses until his mouth touched the most sensitive part of Caron's body. and the region was still tingling from Allan's early teasing, and the kiss finally extinguished all intelligent thought from Caron's mind, and finally he allowed himself to feel and enjoy himself, and as he shuddered he trembled, his face brightened in the ecstasy of pleasure, and Allan drew back to test Caron, but Caron had learned his lesson, and he pushed Allan's head down to entreat him to finish what he started, and Allan resumed his kisses, though only now his hand, which had limited themselves to stroking Caron's chest, started working their way to his nether regions. And this new touch was different to Caron, and through the midst of enjoyment he remembered Allan's remarks about passivity, and he started stroking Allan's hair and back gently, and this disarmed Allan, and he allowed Caron to finish with his kisses without trying anything funny. Allan got up and he spat Caron's content into the sink, and Caron panting got up as well, and he wrapped his arms around Allan's shoulder, and smiling he said, "Allan, I swear to you, if you tell me that you love me, I am going to smack the stupid grin out of your face," said Allan, annoyed. Caron chuckled and he kissed the moody Allan on the cheek, and Allan saw his own face in the mirror, and behind him he saw the lithograph of Grimory, and in the darkness it felt to Allan that Grimory was angry at him, and he turned to look at Caron with fury in his eye, and he pulled Caron by the hair, and then he gave him a violent kiss, and this had deterred Caron, rather it excited him. "Allan, what do you think of me? If you hate me, then how can you be with me?" said Caron. "Love has nothing to do with lust. I can want you, while at the same time I can fancy throwing you off a cliff," said Allan, chuckling. "You wouldn't throw me off a cliff, would you?" asked Caron sweetly. "Huh, don't tempt me, little ogre," said Allan, laughing. And he took Caron's head into his arm, and he stuck his thumb into Caron's mouth, and Caron removed the hand, and then he started again. "Allan, I am serious. Am I more desirable as a man or as a woman?" "Shish, you talk more than a woman. I satisfy you now. It's your turn," said Allan, changing the conversation. "Will it hurt?" asked Caron. "Only if you bite me. I am serious, I swear to you. I will cave your nose in," said Allan. "Oh, but you seem ready to go," said Caron. "I must insist, and this is part of your training. And how will you know if you made the right choice if you do not see how far it takes you?" reasoned Allan. "I don't know," said Caron. Allan sat down on the bay window, and he waited patiently for Caron to get over his hesitation, and Caron kneeled down and he rested his elbows on Allan's knee, and then he proceeded to kiss it, remembering the warning of what would happen if it bit down. And the door to the bathroom opened ever so slightly, and then it closed again, and Alisa made her way towards Bron's room, and Bron asked, "Is he still alive?" "He's fine," said chuckled Alisa, and she started laughing. "He's swallowing it whole." "I hate you, Alisa," said Bron, sulking, and he added, "and there are plenty of nice guys out there, and why did it have to be Psycho Allan of all people?" "If it makes you feel better, Allan never dines in the same table twice," said Alisa, consoling her husband. "He better not come back for seconds. Oh, I swear to you," said Mumble Bron in anger. Back in the other room, Allan was musing again, and he gave the middle finger to the lithograph of Grimory before saying, "You see that, Gregory? I fucked your boyfriend, or rather, he's fucking me, you coward." Caron pulled back and he asked, "And what are you going on about this time, Allan?" "Well, Gregory's Grimory, and that lithograph you have of him is looking mighty angry," said Allan. Caron turned around, and indeed, under the low light of the moon, the image of Grimory seemed quite displeased. And Caron added, "Oh, I don't know, it does look quite ferocious. But wait, if it's true, then, oh dear, I'm going to have to apologize to Greg." "It's fine, Greg, and I are just friends," said Allan, petting Caron. "I find it hard to believe the way you glare at all of those who get close to Grimory," said Caron. "For the nobles, Grimory is a fancy, something to be used and discarded, and for those farmer wenches, Grimory is their ticket to an easy life. Rich and poor alike, they just use Gregory," complained Allan as he started to close his fist around Caron's hair. "Ouch, let go," said Caron, scratching Allan's hand. "My bad," said Allan added, giving a kiss on Caron's forehead. "There, all better." Caron started trembling, and Allan drew near, and he embraced Caron, and the embrace helped Caron calm down again, and he sighed with contentment. "How many other kids does Gregory have?" asked Caron. "Just Julian, and he really did love that Miss Lady," said Allan bitterly. "And what an idiot. Gregory has a bad habit of falling in love with anyone who pampers him. That is why I'm always just the right amount of mean to him in order to preserve our friendship. Caron, laughing, said, "You can be serious." "Yes, very serious," said Allan, growing serious. "But enough about Gregory. Let's continue." Caron then stood up, and Allan followed, and Caron turned his back to Allan, and he waited. And Allan kissed Caron's neck, and then he proceeded with the final maneuver. And before engaging, Allan tested the grounds. And Caron grasped and he started trembling, and Allan narrowed his eyes, looking deeply into Caron's mind. Caron was terribly frightened, but also excited. "I am ready to accept you, Allan," said Caron, biting his lower lip. "You are far too tense, Caron," said Allan before biting Caron's ear. "It's your decision." Caron hesitated, and his gaze then fell to Grimory, and then he thought of poor Gregory, and he took a deep breath before taking the plunge. Caron had never felt a pain like that before, and this was an unfamiliar type of pain, and he felt great shame and embarrassment. And Allan was far too focused on his own amusement to notice that Caron was suffering. And the wave picked up, and the change in the air temperature caused the bathroom door to open slightly ajar. And Caron looked into the darkness of the other room, and he started to shiver uncontrollably. In the other room, Bron had fallen asleep, and he awoke when he heard his brother screaming, "Allan, stop!" And Bron sat up with a start, and he started to looking about for the key to his armory, and since he could not find it, he punched a random display box, and he brought out an ornamental sword. And the sound of the glass breaking awoke Alyssa, and confused she asked, "What's your deal? Sheesh." "Caron is in trouble. I'm going to murder Allan," said Bron, making his way towards his brother's bedroom. And Alyssa caught up to Bron, and she said, hold your horses. Sheesh, give me that stupid sword. It's not even sharp." "I can still batch Allan's scolding with it," protested Bron, "and we're wasting time." And fleet-footed Alyssa got ahead of her husband, and she peeked into the bathroom. And then she returned to explain the situation to her husband, and she gave a pitiful look, and then she said, "Allan is having one of his episodes." "And don't tell me he's caving in his skull into the ground while apologizing," asked Bron. "Yeah, it is quite pitiful, really," commented Alyssa. "Still, he must have done something," said Bron, suspicious. "Go to bed, husband," said Alyssa sternly, and she added playfully, "It is past your bedtime." Alright, it's past your bedtime. Bye-bye, God bless.